Right, let's take a quick rundown then of the boxing action this coming weekend. 29th and 30th of April. We're going to kick off in Belgium, the top sport hall in Vlaanderen. Any kickboxing fans, Glory kickboxing fans, will recognise the name Mark de Bonte. Mark is the former Glory welterweight champion. Excuse me, he's 7 wins and 1 loss as a pro, and he's in action against the undefeated form of Timur Nikarkoev. Timur is 8 wins and no losses. That's one just for the kickboxing fans. Sticking in Europe, we're at the Frederiksborg Hallern in Frederiksberg, Denmark. Danish TV have got Lalenga Mock. You may remember Lalenga back in September of 2003, losing to David Hay. I think he was the first person to ever have David Hay on the canvas, if I remember rightly. Anyway, Lalenga has been campaigning in Denmark now for a good few years, originally from the Democratic Republic of Congo. On the 11th of May, he'll be celebrating 25 years as a pro. That's quite unbelievable. 44 now, Lalenga. Anyway, he's in action on this Mogan's Palace show against the undefeated David Zagara. Zagara is 30 wins and no losses with 16 knockouts, and he's from Peru, Lima to be precise, and this is his first time fighting outside of that country, so that should be interesting to see how he fares. Going to Africa now, there's a massive show at the Accra Sports Stadium in, funnily enough, Accra in Ghana. Joseph Agbeko is a co-promoter of that one, the former IBO, IBF and Commonwealth Bantamweight champion. His promotional company is known as Fresh King Entertainment. He's in action against Filipino southpaw Chris Alfanti. Chris has 11 wins, 5 losses and a draw. The only recognisable name on his record is knockout CP Freshmart of Thailand, who reflicted 2 defeats to Alfanti. Also in action, former IBF welterweight champion Josh Clotty. 39 wins, 5 losses for him. He's now 38 years of age, coming off a loss to Gabriel Rosado in an ill-advised move to light middle, I think it was. Maybe even as high as middle. Anyway, Josh is in action against Brazil's Anderson Clayton. Anderson has 43 wins, 10 losses and 2 draws. And the main event of this star-studded show in Accra is for the WBA International Lightweight title. Emmanuel Tayo is the main event. He's 25 wins and a loss. He's going up against the former 2-time IBF Super Featherweight champion, 42 years of age, 38 wins and 9 losses, Mzonke Fenar of South Africa. The Rose of Kaelicha, wonderful nickname he has. Marco Antonio Barrera fans will probably remember Mzonke for not falling over, that's a bit of a cruel way to put it, but he was brushed aside by Barrera in 2 rounds back, I think it was in Texas in 2006. And also UK fans may remember Mzonke for putting up a sterling effort back in 1999 as he lost a 12-round unanimous decision to Dean Pithy, the former quality amateur. Sticking in the UK though, York Hall Promotion. Dennis Hobson's got that one on, an 8-rounder. Main event as Johnny Coyle, the former prizefighter winner. Nearly 2 years ago he won that now. 12 wins, no losses and a draw. Southpaw, tricky Southpaw at that, has a very good win over the fast fleeting fists of Philip Quicksilver Bowes. Anyway, Johnny's in action against Casey Blair. Casey's 3 wins and 8 losses. Also on that show, 6-rounder at welterweight, Louis Adolphe. Keep an eye out for him. He's a quality amateur. He's looking for his 5th straight win as a pro. He's in action against the 8 wins, 19 losses and 1 draw figure of James Gorman. A trio, or no, actually about 5 featherweight, 4-round contests going down on that show. 7-3 figure of Craig White. He's going up against 3-10 Lucas Leskovich. That's at featherweight. Light heavyweight sees Kurt Garvey. He's 3-0, looking for his 4th. Another promising ex-amateur to keep an eye out for. He's going up against the familiar face of Elvis Dube. Elvis has 7 wins, 48 losses and 2 draws. And at super lightweight, Idris Hill is hoping to make it 4 wins out of 4. He's going up against the famous centurion of the British ring, Yusuf El Hamidi. Yusuf, 13 wins, 88 losses, 3 draws. But he more than knows his way around the ring. Another centurion, or nearly centurion, Danny Dunchev is closing on his 100th fight. He's in action against George Hennon. George is currently 2-0. And Taylin Jones, at middleweight. You may remember Taylin not so long ago was featured on an online video made public by Chris Eubank Jr. He's looking for his 2nd win as a pro. He's going up against the winless form of Scott Hellman. Scott is 0 wins, 5 losses. Another show going down, which will be in the US tomorrow night, Friday night, whenever you hear this. Trump Taj Mahal, Atlantic City. Spike TV have got coverage of that. The Durrell brothers, the Fighting Durrell brothers, They're in action, and Al Heyman. This is basically an event for him under the auspices of King's Promotions, formerly under the helm of TV billionaire Michael King, unfortunately no longer with us. Anyway, that show is headlined by, well, I don't know who the headliner is, Anthony and Andre Durrell. Take your pick. Anthony, 28 wins, 1 loss and a draw. He's going up against Caleb Truax, you may remember last year lost 8 to Danny Jacobs. Caleb's 26 wins, 2 losses, 2 draws. And that's a 10-rounder at super middleweight, if I didn't say that before. And another 10-rounder at super middleweight, we'll see Andre Durrell, 24 wins, 2 losses. Carl Froch and James DeGale fans will remember him. He's going up against Blake Caparello of Australia. Blake, 22 wins, 1 loss and a draw. And he's more famous for losing to Sergei Kovalev a year or so back. And the third and final fight of note on that bill, we'll see the Salomon King, undefeated 26-year-old knockout artist Jonathan Guzman, 20 wins, 20 fights, 20 KOs. He's going up against the self-styled bad boy of Mexico, Daniel Rosas. Daniel's 20 wins, 2 losses and a draw. That should be interesting. Hopefully that one will make TV. And the final fight, which is going down on the 29th, is at the famous Arena Roberto Duran, which, guess where that is? You got it, Panama City. The vacant WBC Silver Bantamweight Championship is up for grabs there, as the slick Anselmo Moreno, 35 wins, 4 losses and 1 draw, with 12 KOs. He's now 30 years of age, never been stopped in all 4 of his losses. However, he's coming off 2 straight defeats. He lost his WBA Super Bantamweight Championship, the proper one, Jamie McDonnell. He lost that in September 2014 on a technical decision loss to Juan Carlos Payano, who still has the championship now. That was on a Mike Tyson promotion back when he was promoting shows not long ago. And then his last loss was September 2015, a split decision defeat to Shinsuke Yamanaka. 115, 113 on all 3 judges. 2 went for Yamanaka, 1 went for Moreno. Nothing, no disgrace there, losing that close in Japan. But he's mostly known for his Bantamweight Championship run. Defeated Vladimir Sidorenko back in 2008, and then he defeated Vladimir in a rematch. Vladimir was Ukrainian but stabled in Germany at the time, and he also has some very famous great victories over guys such as Mayar Munsapur, great Iranian fighter. 2 victories over Neymar Chameno of Venezuela. A victory of the very underrated Lorenzo Parra, the win over Victor Chinian. But unfortunately, he's probably most famously known in the US for losing on points to Adman Amares in an ill-fated move up to Super Bantam. And that was in November 2012. He had a short spell for Golden Boy Promotions. His opponent on the night at the Arena Roberto Duran is Suryan Saw Rungvisai, 27-year-old Thai, 46 wins, 6 losses and a draw, 23 KOs. This will be his 4th time fighting outside of Thailand, and unfortunately he's yet to win doing so. He did lose a very close decision loss back in 2010 to the legendary Pongsaklak Wongjongkam. He got a point deducted. If he wouldn't have got a point deducted in that one, he would have got a draw. But he did go on to win the WBC Super Flyweight Championship a year later. He won that from Thomas Roas, defeated Japan's Nobuo Nishiro with a unanimous decision, but then lost the championship in March of 2012 to another Japanese in the form of Yota Soto. He was down twice in that one. He also, that is, saw Rungvisai as a loss to Shinsuke Yamanaka. He lost in October 2014. He was down 3 times in his bantamweight challenge, but since that loss he is 9-0 with 7 knockouts, and he's hoping to get the WBC Silver Bantamweight Championship against Moreno. Interesting fight down there. That's Friday, the 29th, then we're moving on to the 30th of April. Kicking off at the Melbourne Pavilion, Barry Michael, the former IBF World Champion, born in Britain if I remember rightly. He's got a show there. The WBC International Super Middleweight Championship is up for grabs as the unbeaten Zach Dunn, a very promising fighter from Australia. He's going up against the grizzled vet, Liz Sherrington, 35 wins and 8 losses, who should have come over, I think, about a year ago to fight Chris Eubank Jr. Didn't happen. Anyway, that's an interesting fight for Australian fans. Then moving over to the UK at the DW Stadium in Wigan, I'll get that right, Wigan, what's that? It's the guy from The Simpsons. Neil Marsh, the former manager of Martin Murray's got a show for the WBA Continental Super Lightweight Championship, 12 3-minute rounds going down there. Robbie Davis Jr., 12 wins, no losses, son of the former Olympian, Robbie Davis, very promising fighter from Liverpool. He's going up against the 27-year-old Argentine Xavier Lucas Castillo. Castillo's 15 wins and 5 losses, with 5 wins by way of knockout. But unfortunately for him, he's coming off a defeat, so you got to say that Robbie Davis would be the favourite for that one. Also in action, Kid Galahad makes his return from his drug suspension. His drug ban put in place by UKAD. He's in action as 6th-round Super Bantam, and also Adam Little, who I think is a Ricky Hatton fighter. He's in action in a 6th-rounder at welterweight. And continuing in England, Dennis Hobson's got his second show in 2 days. This one's at the City Hall in Sheffield. Very interesting show. I recommend this one, actually, to be honest. And if you want tickets, I've got a number you can ring, actually. 011 42 43 4443. And the main event on that one is Sam Speedy Sheedy, 16 wins, 1 loss, 4 wins by way of knockout. Tricky Southpaw, he's in action, 10-round middleweight action against another unbeaten Southpaw in Alfredo Mealy. He's 11 wins, no losses and a draw, trained by Shane McGuigan. He's fights out of Belfast. He's a former Irish Fighter of the Year. Or is it an Irish Prospect of the Year? One or the other. He's coming off, the only blemish in his career in November was a draw with 10-round draw with Conrad Cummings, another very promising Irish fighter. Most of his contests, of his 12 contests, have been 4-round and 6-round wins. But like we said, Shane McGuigan doesn't associate himself with any mugs. That's a really interesting fight, like I said. Sam Sheedy, it really does use the ring well. He's a local guy. He's from Sheffield. He's coming off a first-round TKO victory of November. Or in November, I should say. But famously, he was on TV back in July, losing a very contentious decision to Nav Mansouri, a split decision over 10 rounds. Like I said, it's a 50-50 fight. I might lean towards Mealy. I could be wrong on that one, but like I said, it's definitely worth a watch if you're in the area. Also in action, very promising Carl Yousaf. He's 6 wins, no losses. Also keep an eye out for Rasik Najib. He's 5-0. Tom Bell is 2-0. And Ramsey Nasser, 6 wins, no losses and a draw. Interesting show down there in Sheffield. Again, 30th of April, the York Hall. Tommy Dove of Dove Box, a new name for me as a promoter. He's got a show going down, doesn't know how many rounds, but it's a heavyweight contest, rematch actually, between the monstrous form of Dominic Akinladi of New Cross. He's 5 wins, no losses and a draw. His first fight of the year. The rematch, like we said, is going up against Kamil Sokolovsky, a Plymouth-based Pole. He's 1 win, 5 losses and 1 draw, but don't let that record deceive you. His only win is over an exciting heavyweight, the heat seeker, Adam Machaj, and those 5 losses... of those 5 losses, he's lost to Dillian White, Sam Sexton, and Gary Cornish, and the only man to stop Kamil is Dillian White. So, like we said, this is a rematch of a 6-round draw which went ahead back in March 2015, so there is pride at stake there. Ian laying out Lewison, he's back in action, his first fight since July of 2014, 10 wins, 2 losses and a draw, very promising. As victories are victories of a Derek Rossian prize fighter. No, excuse me, he lost to Derek Rossian prize fighter. Shouldn't have done. A very controversial decision. Also has a controversial loss to Chris Kenner. He does have impressive TKO victories over Dorian Darch, Timo Hoffman and Tom Dallas. Ian, like we said, when his head's screwed on, is very, very much worth a watch. He's going up against Thomas Mrazek. Thomas Mrazek, 10 wins, 53 losses, 6 draws from the Czech Republic, and he's been in with a real who's who. I could be here for the next half an hour telling you about who he's been in with, but I'll keep it sweet and short. He's been in with Dillian White, Sam Sexton and Mike Perez, among others. That's the York Hall. Sticking, and still again on the 30th of April, the King's Hall in Stoke-on-Trent. Carl Greaves has got a small show, topped off with an 8-rounder at lightweight. Undefeated Kerry Evans is 6-0, looking to make it 7. He's in action against Rhys Saunders. Rhys is 2 wins, 3 losses and a draw. There's also 6 4-rounders featuring Josh McLaren. He's going up against the Centurion, the very tricky form of William Webb Warburton. Also, don't miss Ben Elland, Chris Nixon. They're in action. The Copper Box in Hackney Wick. That's probably the biggest show in the UK over the weekend. Massive show, really. 2 British titles and 1 Commonwealth belt in action. The Queensbury Promotions is who's putting that one on. If you want, there's tickets still available. If you're interested, just ring 0871 230 7148. And the main event, Liam Walsh defending his British Super Featherweight Championship against Troy James. Liam is 19 wins, 13 KOs. 29-year-old southpaw at Cromer. Main event of the very first show on BoxNation. Scored a 10th round retirement back in September 2011 over Paul Appleby. What a fight that was for the Commonwealth Super Featherweight Championship. Liam was defending the Commonwealth crown, which he won back in October 2010. Defended it 5 times. I think he's vacated it since then because it's not on the line here. He also has very important victories over, or a very big victory even, over Scott Harrison back in April 2013. And then he's only the second man to defeat Scott Harrison. I think the first was Miguel Matthews. And Scott has been in action over many world title fights and never tasted defeat in those. So it's a good win really for Liam. And then he won the British Championship in November of 2014 with a unanimous decision over Gary Sykes. And this is Liam's first fight since July of last year when he's scored a rather easy victory over the Brazilian Isaiah Sampaio. His opponent, Troy James, 18 wins, 2 losses and a draw. He's 32 years old from Coventry, goes by the nickname of Terrifying. One of the very first fighters that Barry McGuigan managed when Barry McGuigan decided to get into managing and promoting fighters. However, Troy is not associated with Barry anymore. Troy turned over in 2009 and lost his unbeaten record in an 11th fight to the tricky form of Reese Roberts. Reese unfortunately no longer fights. I think he suffered a bit of hand trouble. That was in October of 2011. Then his next biggest fight really was a 10-round points loss to the current world champion, Terry Flanagan. That was over 10 rounds for the English Super Featherweight Championship in September of 2012. No disgrace here, Terry's gone on to some great things. His most notable win on Troy's record is a split decision win over the then unbeaten Ronnie the Shark Clark, who was absolutely relentless Scottish fighter. And I think that's the victory which really got him his British title shot. If I remember rightly, I think Ronnie Clark is the man who actually has a draw with Liam's brother Ryan, who's in action. Speaking of Ryan, he's defending against his British Featherweight Championship against James Tennyson. Ryan, 20 wins, 1 loss and a draw. He's 29 years old. Cromer, I believe he's the twin of Liam. Been a pro now for 8 years. This is the second defence of his British Championship, which he won with a very tight decision over Samir Muniemni, and then defended most recently with a 5th round victory over Darren Trainer. James Tennyson, his opponent, 16 wins and 1 loss, 22 years of age, nicknamed the Assassin, boxers out of the Belfast Kronk, which went on a really long unbeaten run a few years ago. The Belfast Kronk is run by Tony Dunlop. James has won 8 straight since his shocking loss, 2nd round TKO loss in October 2013 to Pavel Senkovs, who at the time had only won 2 out of 71 contests. That's how much of a surprise that was. And the most notable of those 7 victories, I think you have to say, is his 7th round DQ win over Chris Badger Hughes, which went down in March 2015. James, very highly skilled, but like I said, doesn't have been in with too many live opponents. I think Ryan is the pick, but like I said, it's a really interesting contest. And the third and final of the title fights going down at the Copper Box is the Commonwealth Super Flyweight Championship. Somebody's who's got to go, as they say, as Anthony Nelson puts the Commonwealth Championship in action for the first time since he won it. Anthony's 11-0. He's been a pro for nearly 4 years now. He's boxes out of Safe Shields. He's also a former undefeated English champion. And he won the Commonwealth Championship with a 6th-round retirement victory over Jamie Wilson, who was also unbeaten at the time. Since winning the championship, he's had 1 fight, which was really a 6th-round sharpener over Ian Halsall. His opponent, and is the favourite, I think, you've got to say, Jamie Conlon, 15 wins, no losses, 29 years of age now, Jamie. This is his first fight of the year. And when you say Jamie Conlon, you can't go without mentioning the victory over Junior Granados over 10 rounds, Fight of the Year candidate last July. Hopefully, should Jamie get the victory here, hopefully we'll see Jamie Conlon, Paul Butler at some point in 2016. Seem to be talking about that fight for a little while now. Like I said, hopefully we will see it. Also in action on the Cover Box show, there is a ton of unbeaten prospects that you should keep an eye out for. The notorious Vijender Singh, India's most famous boxing export even, hoping to make it 5 wins out of 5 at middleweight. A who's who of who he's boxed as an amateur, really. Also, Boy Jones, who's in act. Boy Jones Jr., 7 wins, no losses and a draw. He's a super featherweight. Ricky Hatton's heavyweight Nathan Gorman, who's 2-0, I believe is a relation to Bartley Gorman. If you don't know who Bartley Gorman is, Google him. You'll thank me later. Also, Sanjeev Sahota is debuting at super lightweight. I've heard a lot about him, so I'm interested to see if he gets on the TV. Naz's fighter, Prince Naseem Ahmed, Tony Bang, makes his debut at welterweight. Barney Joe Jones, very popular super middleweight, is in action. Sam McNess, super welterweight, 4-0. Keep an eye out for him, he's quality. Billy Long, big ticket seller, 4-0 as well, he's a super middleweight. And speaking of ticket sellers, DP Carr at lightweight, he's a local man in London, 3-0, his current record is. Keep an eye out for him too. Who else has gone on? Oh, we have Hughie Fury's in action, of course. Hughie, 19-0, always gets the job done, never in any rush. And he's probably gonna have a long night ahead of him against the 18-4-1 record of Fred Cassie, Cameroon-born but now fights out of New Orleans, Louisiana. Fred's 36 years of age, and if you follow heavyweight boxing, you probably would have seen him most recently used to Dominic Breazeale, which he should have won that one really, but he basically gave that one away over 10 rounds. And then Chris Arreola, when Chris was seemingly on the verge of a WBC Championship challenge against Deontay Wilder. Nobody gave Fred Cassie the memo, and Fred really fiddled and messed Chris Arreola around on the way to getting a 10-round draw. Like we said, Fred is 18-4-1. Of those 4 losses, he's only suffered 1 KO loss, and that was in November 2014 to Amir Hardcore Mansour. Doesn't muck around. And like I said, Hughie is a big favourite there. Hughie should get that one done on points. Also in action is Lewis Petit. He's 18 wins, 2 losses. He's continuing to rebuild from his Commonwealth Championship defeat back last year to Bobby Jenkinson. That's the Copper Box show reviewed, and I think we are going to go over to the US now for what's left of the weekend action. Yeah, we are. The 2 major shows in the US over the weekend. StubHub Center in Carson, California. That's going to be televised free on Fox TV in the States. And that's a Tom Brown show, which is basically an Al Heyman show. Excuse me. For his Premier Boxing Champions vehicle. The main event is a non-title 12-rounder. A rematch from that famous Fight of the Year candidate in 2011. Between Andre Berto and Victor Ortiz. Andre, 30 wins, 4 losses, 23 KOs. He's like 32 years of age. I didn't really know this, but he's been a pro for nearly 12 years. And he's a former WBC welterweight champion, made 5 defences of that. And also a former IBF welterweight champion, but I think he vacated it shortly after winning it. After he won it, he took 2 straight losses to Robert Guerrero and Jesus Soto Carras, in which he suffered a shoulder injury. Andre, of course, was coming off a loss to Floyd Mayweather, and I think he's notable really for being the first fighter that Andre and Al Heyman positioned into big money for small fights back a few years ago. Anyway, Andre's opponent, Victor Ortiz, 31 wins, 5 losses and 2 draws. He's now 29 years of age. He's a southpaw, former WBC welterweight champion, which he won from Andre Berto. Lost it in his first defence to Floyd Mayweather in that now infamous contest. He's coming off 2 straight TKO victories, but before that he suffered 3 straight defeats over a 2.5 year, or 2 and a bit year spell. Floyd Mayweather, as we said. Jose Cito Lopez, when he suffered that jaw injury, and then the stunning 2nd round loss at the hands of Luis Collazo, which just about everybody wrote him off. Well, like we said, he's had 2 straight wins since then. Is it last roll of the dice for Victor? I think it could be, to be honest. I saw an interview with him this week, a press interviewer, while he was working out, and he didn't sound good at all. Not slurring speech or anything like that, but he's just not sounding too positive when he speaks nowadays. And I saw him last year on a Showtime event when he was interviewed backstage, and I think he was drunk out of his mind. So anyway, I wish him for the best. He is always worth a watch. But I don't think it's going to be as good as the first fight back in 2011. And also on that show, oh well, there we go. I found it in the end. I couldn't find where I was looking. 10-rounder at heavyweight. Gerald Washington, 16 wins, no losses and a draw. The Black Ghost, El Gallo Negro, is 6'6". The only blemish on his record is a 10-round draw last October to Amir Mansour. We've spoken about him already today. He's in action against Eddie Chambers. Eddie's 42 wins and 4 losses, now 34 years of age. Has two victories over Derek Rossi, Dominic Gwynn. Also has wins over Calvin Brock, Samuel Peter and Alexander Dimitrenko. If you remember, UK fans, he moved to the UK to train with Peter Fury. Ratcheted off 4 quick wins in 7 months, and then I think it all petered out. He was out for 10 months before he returned. He put a stone heavier in the US with a victory over Galen Brown, so he's rebuilding. Didn't really find out what happened at the end there. There was a lot of press about it when he moved into the UK, but he's moved away pretty quietly. Anyway, it's something of a gatekeeper fight, even though Gerald is unbeaten. But he's been around for quite a while, and he's got to start making a move. 10-round heavyweight Gerald Washington versus Eddie Chambers, also in action on that card. 10-round featherweight Fernando Montiel, the former freeweight world champion, has his first fight since he's lost to Lee Selby. He's going up against an undefeated Mexican southpaw, Jorge Lara. He's 27 wins, no losses and 2 draws. Fernando, like we said, he's now 37 years of age, and he's held champion. He's WBO flyweight champion, former 2-time WBO super flyweight champion, and a former WBO and WBC bantamweight champion. 10 wins and 2 losses since he's lost to Nonito Donaire in 2 rounds, and that loss, of course, the last loss was to Lee Selby back in October, and the other loss was to Victor Terrazas over 12 rounds. He's just about at the end of his rope, I think, Fernando, and but never rule him out. But Jorge Lara undefeated, like we said, in nearly 30 fights. Another interesting fight down there on that Fox bill, StubHub Centre, 10-rounder at light heavyweight, Edwin Rodriguez, La Bomba, 28 wins, 1 loss, 19 KOs, now 30 years of age. He's in action against Thomas Williams Jr., top dog, 19 wins, 1 loss, 13 wins by way of KO. Thomas is a southpaw, coming out of Maryland. He's 2 back-to-back wins since he suffered a real surprising 5th-round retirement loss to Gabriel Campillo. This is why it's a crossroads fight for him, because Edwin, like, the only loss for him is that 12-rounder to Andre Ward. He has 2 wins over sons of world champions, actually, Edwin. Victories over James McGirt Jr. and Aaron Pryor Jr. And is coming off that famous win over Michael Seals. That was up and down war. I think Edwin is the pick in that one. And last but not least, there is an event going down at the Armory in Washington DC, which is seeing a lot of action. That's a PBC show as well. I think the PBC show, the Armory show goes on first, and then they're flicking over to the Fox show. Mayweather Promotions has got the show at the Armory. The WBC Super Middleweight Championship of the World. Badou Jack, to make the second defence of his crown, he's up against Lucien Boutte, who's coming off a loss, of course, to James DeGale last December. Lucien's 32 wins and 3 losses with 25 KOs. Badou's 32 years of age. Celebrated his first year as a champ. Has a victory over Rogelio Medina, who we'll be talking about shortly. The only the blemishes on his record is that 2014 first-round wipeout at the hands of Derek Edwards, and a draw with Marco Antonio Periban. And he represented Gambia, the only Gambian, I believe, to represent them at the Olympic Games for boxing, and he lost in the first round to Vijender Singh at the Olympics. Boutte, don't need to go over a lot of his accolades, because I think a lot of you know what they are. 36 years of age now, with the IBF Super Middleweight Champion from 2007 to 2012, in which he made 9 defences. Lost his unbeaten record to Carl Froch. Since that loss, he's 2 wins and 3 losses, and like I said, this is his back-to-back title shot, which I think, to be honest, he got this because of his association with Al Heyman. Jack is the favourite, but do not rule Lucien Boutte out. The last thing that they always say, the last thing to go is his punch, and Badou isn't really much of a puncher, even though he has over a 50% KO rate. Who knows what's going to happen there, but I lean towards Badou Jack. And the other World Championship contest on that bill, UK's own Halston, stand up! James DeGale, 22 wins, 1 loss, 14 KOs, hoping to make the second defence of his crown, coming up for a first year's champion, becoming the first UK gold medalist to win a World Championship as a boxer. And nearly 5 years ago since he's lost to George Groves. Can't believe that. Just think all those fought in shopping centres and he's fought injured, but now he's making up for it. World champion. I'm very pleased for it. It was a great fight at James DeGale. But who's he up against? He's up against Porky Rogelio Medina. 36 wins, 6 losses and 30 KOs. 27 years of age and he's 6 feet 1. He's coming off 4 straight wins, including one over the proven performance enhancing drug cheat J. Leon Love of the Mayweather gym. J. Leon was unbeaten at the time, but was brushed aside by Medina in 3 rounds. I wonder if Love would have won that contest, whether he would be getting the shot that Medina's getting. More than likely, I got to say. The 6 losses, he's suffered what, Yuri Boy Campas, that's a worrying one. He suffered a 6-round loss to him in June 2011, a 10-round points decision in February 2013 to Jose Uzcategui. Uzcategui was meant to be getting the shot here, but an injury forced him out, so Medina slides straight in. He was 24-0 before losing in a 6-round TKO to Gilberto Ramirez. El Zurdo recently won the WBO Super Middleweight Championship. And he also has a loss to Badu Jack. That was a 6-round TKO. I saw that one. That was on Showtime. I think it's Showbox. That was on. Gave a good account of himself. I think he stung Jack a few times before, like we said, lost on a 6-round TKO. He also has a split decision 10-round loss to Jonathan Gonzalez over 10 rounds in May 2014. I expect him to give a good account of himself, but James will have too much for him. Also on that bill, probably won't make TV, but keep an eye out for this name, Latondria Jones. She boxes out of the Mayweather Boxing Club. She's a middleweight and currently 2-0. Also in action there, the 2006 Commonwealth Games representative Sharif Bogaray, the Lion, 27 wins, 1 loss. The only loss was in a World Championship attempt. He's boxing at super lightweight. Also Christopher Pearson, keep an eye out for him. Southpaw of the Mayweather Boxing Club, coming off his first loss, an upset loss to Eric Walker. He's going to get plenty of chances though, because Floyd Mayweather believes in him. He's going up against Joshua O'Kine, who over 10 years ago was won and lost in the UK. He was a former Commonwealth welterweight champion. Defeated David Barnes in a stinker on the undercard of Ricky Hatton's win over Kostya Tszyu, and then lost it to Kevin Anderson. And the other noticeable thing of Joshua O'Kine is that he won a reality show in his native Ghana, The Last Warrior. That was a good few years ago. Tough as teak, as they say, Joshua O'Kine, but unfortunately he hasn't won outside of Ghana in over 10 years. So Christopher is the favourite. Anyway, that's the rundown of the boxing weekend. Keep an eye out for the channel. I'm on Facebook, Gloves Up, Chin Down. YouTube, Gloves Up, Chin Down. Google Plus, Gloves Up, Chin Down. Until next time, Oos!